Take a look at this story. We got this from the Daily Mail. Alec chose to play Russian roulette. Rust script supervisor breaks down in tears as she sues Baldwin over Helena Hutchins' death because he cocked and fired the gun even though the scene didn't call for it. She says Baldwin knew the gun should have never been given to him and that he could not rely on the assistant director about whether or not the gun was safe to use. Mr. Baldwin chose to play Russian roulette when he fired a gun without checking it and without having an armorer within his presence. I want to point something out. This is what I was saying a couple weeks ago. Everybody started this story saying it was a misfire from a blank, that shrapnel hit this woman. And I wonder, I can't remember who was telling us this, but maybe that was a PR response. A crisis management company for him leaked that story because they were like, if we start with the premise that it was an accident, everyone will believe it was an accident no matter what. And last week I said, why are we assuming it's an accident? Alec Baldwin, we'd have to assume the armorer screwed up, the assistant director screwed up, that Alec Baldwin screwed up, and then he pointed it in the right direction. Those are all crazy assumptions. How come we're not starting from Alec Baldwin pulled the gun, pointed it, cocked it, pulled the trigger, and then from there we can walk it back? Now, this is big. The script supervisor, the person who knows exactly what's supposed to go on scene, says he wasn't supposed to have a gun.
Right.
He should have checked it, and he didn't. He certainly wasn't supposed to pull the hammer and pull the trigger. That, to me, sounds like a good argument for intentional homicide.
I'm not a huge gun person, but every time I've handled a gun, the person handing it to me, who's actually a gun expert, or just someone who's aficionado, gave me a speech. And part of that speech is, you do not point a gun at anything that you do not want to destroy. You assume every single gun you are handing is loaded until you check it personally. You do not put your finger on a trigger. And if you screw up any one of those, you're still going to be safe.
And just one more. You don't act like a state prosecutor.
What do you
No. But there is actually one more. Always know what's behind your target.
Okay, yeah.
What your target is and beyond. That's important here specifically for Baldwin, because if we're still operating under the premise that he was pointing it at the camera for a scene, he wasn't paying attention to what was beyond his target. But I don't buy that for a minute. Look, if we're going to talk about a guy who wasn't supposed to be given a gun, she says it. She's a script supervisor. That's big. Wasn't supposed to have it. Why did he have it? Why am I then going to assume this wasn't murder? Because you've got an angry crew. You've got people threatening to walk off set. Baldwin says, I had a dinner with her just that Friday. Sounds to me, and I said this before, she was actually negotiating with him or arguing with him. And then he goes on set, takes the gun and says, bam. Oh no. Oh, geez.
That's like pure psycho if he did that.
But you're saying that the rumor that went around that he jokingly said, how about I just kill you both, that was a false rumor,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Someone.
That was clever. It was a clever hoax. I almost fell for that one too.
Me too. Yeah. I actually recorded a video and then someone responded with the clip and I was like, whoa. Because I'm like showing the article. I'm showing the tweet and then I see that and I was like, I don't know if that's true. I got to check. Yeah. Someone took a news article and then altered the code to add that line.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was his PR team in order to muddy the waters, because a lot of times with disinformation, we see fake information being brought out to the general public to make everyone confused about what's really going on there. And you saw Baldwin right after the incident. He was right on the phone. He was probably talking to his PR people. He was trying to probably run cover. He has a lot of money. He has a lot of influence. And there was a lot of cover. We're just finding out about these details now. How many days later has it been?
Yeah.
So what else are they hiding? What else don't we know about? When's the investigation? Is there even an investigation? I mean, what's going on here? Everyone should be asking these larger questions, and they're not.
An accident means different things, right? If they're trying to make it out as if he just dropped a gun and it went off and shot someone. When you are pointing a gun at someone and cocking a trigger, you can't say that that's an accident. That's intentionality. Oh, sorry. See, I don't even know the terms, but even I know enough. You don't point a gun at someone.
But so this is 3 steps. Well, actually, it's 4. He drew the weapon. He then pointed it. He then pulled the hammer back. He then pulled the trigger. I mean, that is very intentional.
Yeah, it's very disturbing, too. And it's also disturbing how many people were on their knees running interference for him immediately.
Conservatives especially.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, you get the whole conservative. Oh, it's such a tragedy. I can't believe Don Jr. is politicizing. It's just like the spin cycle. And the PR thing you said I know is true. Because I tweeted out, man, this is really weird. The engagement that I got anytime you tweeted about Baldwin, hundreds of replies instantaneously. And it was all, you're cruel, you're vile, how dare. He's the victim here.
Yeah.
And then, amazing. Yeah, and then you even had conservatives going along, oh, it's just such a tragedy. No, it is. Well, it's tragedy for the woman,
Of course.
Right.
obviously, but they were definitely influencing the conversation. And then I do believe they used this information via that article, because then they would go, conspiracy theorists, they're trying to P-gate Alec Baldwin. Can you believe it? Look at these bad actors, blah, blah, blah.
I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but is pointing a gun at someone a felony?
It's called brandishing, is the legal term, brandishing a firearm, and it definitely depends on the context. So if I were just here with you guys and one of you, brandished a firearm without some kind of intent, then it wouldn't be, but it all depends on the context. But then if you came to a bank and you just tapped a gun, that would be brandishing, even though you're not even pointing it. Yeah, so it's all based on the context of...
And it also depends on the state laws, because in some states like Ohio, what the state prosecutor did in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, that's a chargeable offense.
Wisconsin?
No, Ohio has a specific rule.
Oh, I see.
If
Right,
he would have
right.
done the same thing in that state, he would have gone down for a charge.
Right. So here's why I ask. We have this from law.justice.com. This is New Mexico statutes on homicide, section on manslaughter. And it says voluntary manslaughter consists of manslaughter committed upon a sudden quarrel or in the heat of passion. Whoever commits voluntary manslaughter. So I don't think that would apply here. They say involuntary manslaughter consists of manslaughter committed in the commission of an unlawful act not amounting to a felony, or in the commission of a lawful act which might produce death in an unlawful manner, or without due caution or circumspect. And that's they're both felonies. And the reason I ask is I'm wondering if first, we can't call it an accident. An accident would be like you said, you dropped it and it goes off and you're like, oh no, and you might still get in trouble because you were responsible for that. But this is a guy who pulled it out and aimed it at the woman. So can we even argue this is manslaughter if he pointed the gun at her and pulled the trigger?
So involuntary manslaughter, so the way they could say, well, an accident is still negligent. So the legal term is an accident's negligent. So you get in a car crash, it's an accident, but who was negligent? Were you looking at your cell phone at the time? So involuntary manslaughter, the textbook case of that is if you're drinking and driving, it isn't a felony to drink and drive, but somebody dies. You didn't intend for them to die. So that's usually when that would apply, is there was no intent for you to do gross bodily harm or injury to someone else. So with the Alec Baldwin case, we don't have enough facts to know whether it would be voluntary or involuntary, because there's a whole, you could do a whole week of this in law school, and then there's all kinds of cases on it where you go from what's the difference between reckless versus negligent, what's the difference between willful and, again, negligent, and there's a lot of things that depend on the facts. So my instinct from day one was that it would have been involuntary manslaughter. He was recklessly... He was acting with callous or reckless disregard for another person's safety. But I don't think he actually wanted to murder her or anything like that. I don't think he was pointing it at her. I think he was being Alec Baldwin, who, is a douchebag idiot.
Well, with rage issues, as we know. But George Clooney, he had a very interesting comment about this. He's usually a globalist stooge, but today he said...
I love you, Luke.
It's true. It's absolutely true. Look what he pushes. But he came out and was talking about this specific case and said that it was infuriating and insane that this happened, as he's accusing Alec Baldwin of ignoring decades of laws regarding safety and firearms on set of movies. So even George Clooney, he's coming out, calling him out, saying he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. There's something here that's not right.
And Adam Baldwin also corroborated that. He said that a few weeks ago. I know there's no love lost between the two brothers. He goes, I've been in movie sets, and there's a process for decades that people go through before you're handed a gun. Because, and this is something that gun advocates talk about all the time, even though the anti-gun people don't say this, they know very well a gun is not a toy. You are handling a weapon that can kill someone, and you have to treat that with the respect it is due.
So let me start from this premise for you, Cernovich. A man who has decades of firearms training is on set. There is nothing calling for brandishing, displaying, or even holding a weapon. He then points it with a live round and shoots and kills a woman. Wouldn't an investigator or a DA go straight for intentional homicide?
No, that would be voluntary manslaughter, because that would be reckless versus negligent. You're still not an intentional murder because he didn't intend to kill someone.
Wait. But there's no reason to have a gun. If I walk out in the middle of the street and pull out a gun and shoot somebody, they're going to say intentional homicide, right?
again, it varies on the context. How big was the crowd? Were you celebrating a fiesta or something?
Let's say this.
Right.
I walk into the middle of the street, and there's a person filming me with a camera.
Right.
I pull out a gun, cock the hammer, shoot him, and kill him.
Oh, yeah, that would be intentional murder. Yeah.
So Alec Baldwin, I think this is why I ask, if we're approaching it from the context of he wasn't supposed to have a gun, that means he walked up, pointed the gun at a woman for no reason, which he wasn't supposed to have, and decided to shoot her. Why would we operate as if that was like manslaughter?
Because it's the context of the relationship. It's the same thing where if you were on a first date with a girl and she fell asleep and you looked for some action, that would be sexual assault potentially. But if it's your wife or your girlfriend, then there's a pattern of consent. So it's different because of the relationship. So the law, that's why the law is hard.
He's in a dispute with the crew. They were threatening to walk off set.
Well, that would be the case that people would make. In their case, would say that we have a working relationship. It's existed here. He pulled out the gun. He was. I see. Yeah. So it's very. You get it. I mean, law is really. I love having these conversations. It's all about getting in the weeds, and everything is about facts and circumstances. And that's why law drives people crazy. Yeah. Because it's all context based, and one fact can literally change the whole outcome.
Did you see the clip when Alec Baldwin was outside his house, like yelling at reporters? And there were two things that were really clear from that clip that I found, one disturbing, one not disturbing. One is he very clearly feels horrible about this. Like, this is not something where he went to bed that night. It's like, oh, it'll be fine. He's disturbed by this, as virtually anyone is who's responsible for killing someone else. But he also clearly feels that because he's so upset, that means he suffered enough and leave me alone. Yeah. And that, to me, is a big problem. You don't get to decide, well, I feel really bad, I'm suffering, shut up and go away. That's not how it works, because you did something that was extremely preventable, and one person is dead as a consequence.
And he might have been
real quick correction. People are pointing out Adam Baldwin is not a Baldwin brother.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's
well, another thing to really consider here is that Alec Baldwin went to anger management before because of his rage issues and because of other court proceedings that he had related to, of course, blowing up and getting really angry and committing acts of either harassment or assault against other people. So there is a long history here of someone who isn't in control of his emotions to the point where he has sought professional help. So that's another thing to consider.
What if he clearly does feel bad about this, but not for her, for him? Like, oh man, I got really mad. I pulled the trigger. I shouldn't have done that.
But was he mad? It seemed like he was doing it very matter-of-factly.
Well, Malice, he's an actor too. He's an actor too. So we have to consider that when he's portraying these emotions.
I don't think he's that good of an actor.
Maybe. Who knows?
As Jack Donaghy was
but that's a cartoon character, right?
Right.
I think it's very hard to make the case that he's not disturbed by seeing someone he was at least. If one of you right now, God forbid, something happened, we'd all be.
You're making assumptions. You're making assumptions. That this is the issue I took with the case initially. We don't know they were friends.
I didn't say they were friends, even if it's just some random.
You almost said they were friends. You're about to say they were friends.
Alex said they were friends on the record.
He said that, but what I'm saying is, even if it's someone like a person you've had just a conversation with at a party, and in front of you, you saw them get shot and bleed out. I think the vast majority of people will be traumatized for life. Especially if you're the one who pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
The DA says they know who put the bullets in the gun.
Oh.
Yeah, that was something that came out a while ago. So I guess in this case, I mean, final thoughts. You think they're going to actually charge him for anything? As the stuff starts coming out from witnesses?
I say no.
No
way.
Really?
They're not going to get a conviction.
Just some people are above the law.
Yeah.
And Alec Baldwin would fall into that category.
You think they'll charge the assistant director or the armor?
So I think a lot of money will exchange hands, and because Alec Baldwin's going to owe millions of dollars to the family, because if they're either way, if it's your friend, like if you accidentally killed a friend of yours, you would go to the family and be like, "Look, dude, you don't have to sue me. Like, what do you need?"
Yeah.
So if they're friends, he's writing a big check. If they're not friends, he's writing a big check. So if they really are friends, and the husband's going to say, "What good does it do to put you in jail?" They're going to go to the DA and say, "I don't want anybody charged with this. We're not going to cooperate. We're going to do the opposite."
It's actually really interesting, because I'm sure that probably happens a lot where someone does commit an act that results in death that should be criminally charged, but the family, who would normally be complaining, are just like, "No, we understand it was an accident."
You know that the U.S. has bagmen who go to the Middle East, and when we accidentally kill children, we write them out the check to these families. And when if it's a boy, they get a lot bigger of a check than if we accidentally kill one of the girls. So this is actually U.S. and there's
your taxes.
Yeah, and there's actuarial tables for how much you pay off for these poor people in the Middle East who are basically lost their son or daughter for no reason.
Depending on what country, what neighborhood, and the age of the child, and how many other siblings they had. And this is where your tax dollars are going.
Yeah.
This is insane.
Sometimes I wish this was a cooking show and we could be like the cherry goes on the whipped cream and then we all enjoy a nice strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
Instead, we're like, after they kill the child, they send someone to pay off the family.
And then real quick also too is if you're a prosecutor and you have a case that's going to be hard to prove anyway. So you're a prosecutor, you can file a case that's going to be hard to prove, and then the victim's family says we don't want you to file it, then you're not going to file it because what do you gain?
And it's very hard to make the case in terms of sentencing him that this is something he would do again.
Right.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.